No idea who said this first, but you can't please everyone. You're not pizza. And even then, I would argue that there are people out there who do not like pizza. Haven't yet come across one of those people, but I'm certain they exist. And if you're one of them, please comment below because I want to have a chat with you, okay? But the point I'm trying to make is that even pizza, which is like almost universally liked, will not be able to please every single human being on the planet. So in this episode, we are focusing on the self-sabotage type that many of us can relate to, which is the people pleaser. This is the last one in the series, so I am curious actually to know how you found it overall, this whole series. What was most eye-opening to you when learning about the different self-sabotage types, but also what action you took to get your power back and not let it control your life. I truly love to hear from you, so do reach out either in the comments or send me a message. And if you hear running around and hissing and fighting in the background, it's the cats. I'm so sorry. Anywho, if you find yourself always putting others' needs before your own, struggling to say no or avoiding conflict at all costs, then this episode about people pleasing is for you. But let's start with what exactly is a people pleaser. So a people pleaser is someone who prioritizes others' needs, desires, and approval over their own well-being. This can sound noble because, after all, what's wrong with being kind and helpful? But when taken to the extreme, people-pleasing can lead to self-neglect, burnout, and resentment. It's not just about being generous or supportive, it's about an ingrained need to make others happy, often at a great personal cost. So it's when your own personal life takes a backseat for others, meaning we rather do what we believe matters to others instead of what truly matters to us. This mostly happens because people pleasers have a hard time setting boundaries, so they struggle to say no even when it's necessary. They might take on too much work, overcommit on social events, or go out of their way to avoid conflict and maintain harmony, all because they don't want to disappoint anyone else. Did you ever go to a party that you actually didn't want to just because you didn't want the host to feel disappointed or in any way negative about you? Or would you always go way out of your way to look after someone, taking all responsibilities on your shoulders, despite there being loads of others who could share the load with you, and it doesn't need to be just on you, right? But if you want to uphold that harmony, or if you don't trust that they can do it or would do a good enough job or even care about it, that's when you then keep to yourself and you don't speak up. All the while it's eating away at your time only, causing feelings of resentment for those other people who might not be jumping in. Another example might also be that you constantly accept meetings or calls after your regular working hours, or maybe even during your annual leave, because you don't want to upset that one client or colleague. So you make sure to uphold their boundaries but neglect your own, leading you to give more than you can and as a result be more exhausted. And here's the thing, constantly putting others first isn't just unsustainable, it is obviously also a form of self-sabotage. And as with the other saboteurs, it often starts in childhood. Maybe you grew up in an environment where you learned that being agreeable or accommodating brought you approval and love or even safety. And if conflict in your home was met with tension or punishment, you might have learned to keep the peace at any cost. Over time, this becomes a coping mechanism or a way to avoid rejection, criticism, or emotional pain. And then as adults, we continue these patterns because they're familiar and they feel safe, because we know they create a sense of safety around us. So we tell ourselves, if I make everyone else happy, then I'll be accepted, loved, and respected, so I'll be happy. But here's the truth. People-pleasing is a double-edged sword. It's based on the false belief that your worth is dependent on other people's opinions. This means your sense of self becomes fragile, tied to external validation, rather than your own values and desires. As entrepreneurs or leaders or employees, the drive to keep everyone happy can be incredibly detrimental. So you might have a vision for your business, but instead of following it, you find yourself constantly adapting to meet others' expectations. Maybe you take on too many clients because you can't say no, or you over-deliver on every project, sacrificing your time and energy. For example, let's say you want to create the best experience possible for your customers. So you make yourself available at all hours, answering emails late at night, hopping on calls during weekends, and going above and beyond with extra support. It's not that you don't care about your clients, like you do deeply, but the fear of them thinking badly of you or feeling neglected makes it impossible to set healthy boundaries to actually have time for yourself, have the weekend for yourself. So the result is here that you're exhausted, overwhelmed, and eventually your passion, your own passion for your business might even start to dwindle because you're just too burnt out. And again, you might even begin to resent the very people you set out to help, not because they've done anything wrong, but because you've neglected your own needs and your own boundaries in the process, and they basically took advantage of it because it was on offer. That doesn't sound fun to me, so let's discuss how we can put an end to this. And by that, I also, of course, don't mean go to the other extreme and have zero care for others or be fully selfish. We are looking at ways to stop you from pouring too much into others and shift the focus so you can give from an actually fuller cup again. The first one would be, and I do sound like a broken record with this, but it really is self-awareness. Recognize your patterns. Start by becoming aware of when and why you're people-pleasing. Is it a specific person or situation that triggers it? Are there particular words or phrases you use, like, I don't mind, it's no trouble, or whatever you need? So once you recognize these patterns, that's when you can start to interrupt them and choose a different way of action, which might be, for example, setting clear boundaries. Boundaries are crucial. Practice saying no in low-stake situations first. If you can't attend a meeting because you need personal time, say so. The word no in itself is a complete sentence. You don't owe anyone an explanation or apology for protecting your time and energy. In addition, how you treat your boundaries is how you teach others to treat you. If you constantly let other people step over them, that's how they learn and know how to interact with you. So do stay firm, but also communicate the boundary and the resulting consequences if they don't respect them. The next one would be check in with your own needs and values. Before agreeing to something, especially that event that you got invited to, ask yourself, is this something I want to do? Does it align with my values and priorities? And if the answer is no, then give yourself permission to decline. Your needs and desires are just as important as anyone else's, if not more. Then also reframe your mindset. Shift your thinking from, if I say no, they won't like me, to, if I say yes to everything, I'm saying no to myself. Remember, you're not responsible for other people's reactions or feelings. Your job is to take care of yourself first so you can show up fully and authentically for others. And then we also obviously have embraced discomfort. People pleasers often avoid conflict at all costs, but sometimes a little discomfort is necessary for growth. So practice speaking up and asserting yourself even if it feels uncomfortable. The more you do it, the easier it will become. In the beginning, you're allowed to say it's hard, it feels hard, it's because it is, but it will get easier. So find that more often than not, people are totally okay with your boundaries and automatically respect them. And if they don't, see it as a chance to stand up for yourself and grow your confidence. Their reaction and response, again, is not your responsibility. Whilst it's not easy to break free from this lifetime of putting others first, it truly is so worth it. So your value doesn't depend on making everyone happy, okay? You are allowed to take up space, to say no, and to put yourself first without guilt or fear. So one question I would love to leave you with here is, what's one boundary you are going to set from now on to honor your needs a little bit more? And again, start small. Don't do anything big and crazy that maybe feels too impossible or too hard for you. Start with something small. However, that's all I have for today. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you like this topic and the series and want more like this, please do leave a like on YouTube and a rating on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Here's a couple of taps for you that mean the world to me and will help this podcast to reach many more people. So thanks for watching and listening, and I will see you again in the next one.